History with Larry.
All right, Larry.
All right.
Telling a joke right before we go on. Huh?
That's good timing.
That was good.
Comedy, it's all about timing.
What are you doing?
It's all about timing. Okay, so this week's history time with Larry.
It's a good one.
Oh, it's a good one.
And it's kind of because, Israel's in the news.
Oh, is it?
And I thought I'd do something on Israel. So
Sure.
For those who haven't paid attention to the news, yes, Israel is in the news.
Well, they're always, but why are they in the news?
Well, because of the...
They got attacked
I
by...
got something to say.
Yeah, they got attacked by Hamas.
That's right.
I think all these British people are like Hamas. I'm like, it's Hamas, people.
I know.
Hamas.
All right.
Tonight on our news, Israel's been
Hamas.
attacked by Hamas. And I'm like, no, it's Hamas. Anyway,
You're going to like the opening because I know you like musicals.
oh,
Right.
do I?
Yeah.
Okay.
And all the opera, we can't forget about the opera. Who doesn't like, you got the live music. It has a rich history. You got the costumes, the song, the singers, the
We are
stage.
talking about opera.
Well, like I said, who doesn't enjoy a good opera?
Do you?
No,
Okay.
I don't. And that's why this story has none of that.
Oh, okay.
But
No opera.
we're going to come back to that. You'll see why we started with that in a minute. But so this is a true story.
Okay.
There's a lot more behind the scenes, but we're going to focus on the end of the story. But it culminated on June 7th, 1981.
Oh, so recent history.
Yeah, you were
Oh.
just a wee little lad.
I was 5 years old, I think.
No, 1981. You were
5 years old.
Yeah, you would have been 5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, way little lad.
Yes.
I was 11.
Wow.
Baby
Whoa.
steps.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
Baby
Yes,
steps.
absolutely.
This story's full of espionage and intrigue and mystery.
intriguing, Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, is this James Bond?
Kind of. Some of the
Oh.
stuff behind the scenes, it has some of those elements to it. So in the 70s,
Okay.
the leader of Iraq, his name's going to sound familiar, Saddam Hussein.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. I remember that name.
Yeah, he was popular
Yeah.
for a time.
He's the guy in the.
He's the guy
Yeah.
in that thing. Yeah, that's right. Well, he made a deal with France to build a nuclear facility. But maybe they're calling.
I don't know.
Mossad is
Was that
calling.
you?
No,
Okay. Was that that computer, Joshua? Okay.
the Mossad is calling.
Yes.
Anyway, they made a deal with France to build a nuclear reactor. Funny, they named it Tammuz 1, and they're going to build 2 of them. Tammuz 1 and
Tammuz or Tumaz?
Tammuz.
Tammuz. Okay.
Do you know who that is?
Yes, I know who that is.
the son of Nimrod.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
They-
like something with Christmas.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, Nimrod had. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
kind of interesting why they picked that name.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
Now, Iraq said that these facilities were only going to be for supplying electricity and for research.
Oh, of course.
Of course, who need, they need a nuclear reactor for power and all that, and for maybe a few bombs. But, that's down the road a bit. Israel thought that's a bad idea.
You don't think?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they tried to persuade France to not be a part of this.
How did they try? Did they?
Yeah, that's right. Well, they tried some diplomatic approaches. Those didn't work. And then they resorted to some nefarious methods.
Sabotage.
More like
Opera.
there were poisons involved.
Oh, wow.
With top
wow.
scientists.
Good
and,
night.
I guess they figured if they don't have scientists, they won't.
Assassination.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So that's how serious they took it. But that didn't work. They went ahead with the program and they were building these reactors. And on June 7th, 1981, Israel decided we got to do something. These reactors, they're almost finished. And if they get operational, we can't destroy them then because the fallout, the radiation would be too great.
That's a good point.
We got to do something.
Smart people.
Yeah. Well, they decided we're going to go for it. And they came up with a plan.
This is the way.
Yes, this is the way. They had to get. This is a really cool thing because they had to get some intelligence on where it was and how to attack it.
Inconceivable.
Right before this time, Iraq and Iran actually went to war
Yeah.
with each other.
Yeah, they did.
And Iran actually tried to blow up this facility, but they were unsuccessful. But in the process, they were able to destroy some of the planes of the Iraqis.
Okay.
Israel, their planes weren't quite capable of making the flight all the way there and back.
What are you talking about? Their planes weren't able to make the flight.
Well, because of
Was this
fuel.
World War II?
Well, they could have made the flight, but the return, they wouldn't have had enough
Okay.
fuel to make the...
I mean, they are neighbors, right?
Well, yeah, but it was like 1,100, almost 1,100 miles, something like that. It's quite a ways. So
okay.
right before then, they already had a deal with the United States, Lockheed Martin, to buy some F-16s.
Oh, yeah.
And they actually got possession of them early, which those planes had the capacity. Plus, they added extra fuel tanks to them. So they took off on June 7th, 1981. They flew from the southern part of Israel. They had to cross the Gulf of Aqaba.
Okay.
And then they had to fly into Saudi Arabia and Jordan
That was a hard one to
to
say.
get to the Jordanian. Funny thing, they're flying over the Gulf. The king of Jordan happened to be on vacation at the time on his yacht, and he
Okay.
sees these planes fly over.
Wow.
They're flying low, and he could see the Israeli markings. Let me back up.
Back up.
There were 6 F-16s. They had 3 extra fuel tanks. 2 of them were 370 gallons, and then they had a 300-gallon tank on the belly. The other 2 were on the wings.
Sure.
And then they were loaded with each of the 6 F-16s were loaded with 2 2,000-pound bombs, and then some other armaments. They weren't messing around.
No, I guess not.
And they were shadowed by 8 F-15 fighter jets
Okay.
in case they ran into any problems.
Sure.
They were
You want to be prepared.
anyway, so the king of Jordan, King Hussein, saw these planes and he figured, I know where they're going, even though they kind of went out of their way, but he's like, where else would they be going? He tried to reach Saddam Hussein, couldn't get through. The phone call never
Well,
made
you
it.
text him. Should have just texted him.
1981,
Yeah.
it's technology.
Yeah.
They had to fly at low altitudes, but when they got over Saudi Arabia, they spoke in a sort of a
Spoken tongues?
Arabic accent.
Okay.
And then when they were when they were flying over Saudi Arabia, they used their Jordanian radio signals and flight pattern. And then when they were flying over Jordan, they used a Saudi Arabian Arabic accent,
Okay.
just to make it sound like they were not Israeli
Okay.
and cause attention. The other thing they learned through intel was that the border of Iraq and Saudi Arabia, they had 2 towers for air traffic. There was a gap in between them.
And they buzzed the tower. They went right through it.
They went right through that gap.
through it.
Iraq knew the gap was there, but they figured it's the border with Saudi Arabia. Why fix it? There's no need to. So they didn't. And Israel knew about it, so they flew right through that gap. When they got into Iraq airspace, they lowered their altitude to about 100 to 300 feet off the ground.
That's kind of dangerous.
Yeah, well, they didn't want to be detected by radar.
Yeah.
The only downside is they had to be aware of any ground fire because they were so low that they
Sure.
were. But when they got to within about 12 miles of their target, they flew up to about 8,000 feet and then took a dive down over the
Construction.
target
Yeah.
and just dropped their bombs. And they
Wow.
pretty much all of them hit their target.
Yeah.
And they flew up to 40,000 feet and booked it home. And before the Iraqis knew what happened, it was too late.
It's too late.
They were already back home, and without a scratch. They
How
all
about
made
that?
it back home without a scratch.
What does that have to do with opera?
Yeah.
Good question.
I was
Okay.
to say,
So you may not have heard of this.
the Phantom of the Opera?
No, this event, but it was called Operation Opera.
Oh, Operation Opera.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what they called
Did
it.
they sing their way there?
I don't know, but they were. But it was a little. I mean, it was an event.
think it is what
Israel.
you think it means.
Yeah, that's right. Israel was condemned by the rest of the world for doing this
Right, I'm sure they were.
until 10 years later. And I don't know if you remember what happened 10 years later.
We invaded Iraq.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we realized how important it was that Iraq didn't have nuclear capabilities.
Yeah.
Wow.
So because Israel took a risk and it was a dangerous mission.
I mean, that's an act of war. Honestly.
Yeah, it sure was.
I'm surprised they didn't declare war.
I think the problem was because of the war between Iran and Iraq. Iraq
They
just didn't
want a
have
two-front war.
Yeah, and so
Wow.
yeah, they didn't, and they at the time they didn't try to reconstruct the
Operation Opera.
Operation Opera.
Sweet.
Yeah, in 1981.
So that was an opera that you were probably maybe
That's an
maybe
opera.
they should make a musical about it.
That's right. That's an opera I enjoyed reading about.